day I die.
Hello and welcome. I am so glad you are here. If you are new to the show, thank you for joining us. And if you've been a loyal listener, I very much appreciate it if you would hit that follow or subscribe button, and you can help us reach women who are aspiring business leaders and entrepreneurs. Well, today I am excited to host an expert to help us take a deep dive into a topic that has come up in every single episode of the Empowered Career Woman podcast. And that is, how can I show up in the workplace as powerful, be seen, be heard, and get the respect I deserve? This is the Empowered Career Woman podcast, broadcast from the Whitfield Media Group studios in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The Empowered Career Woman is proudly presented by Medicare Misty. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at MedicareMisty.com. I'm your host, Lisa McCluskey, and now let's podcast. Well, as I said, I am pleased to welcome Dr. Veronica Anderson. She is a visionary leader. She is an accomplished physician, the founder of Rosewater Falls, which is a transformative organization that combines the best of conventional medicine, integrative health, and leadership development to create a holistic approach to organizational transformation. She's also an author. She is the best-selling author of 4 books, including her most recent, Get the Respect You Deserve, 7 Secrets to Getting Seen and Heard in Your Job and Relationships. This is incredibly important for the listeners of this podcast. Welcome, Dr. Anderson.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, Lisa. And Veronica is just fine.
Oh, right.
It's very interesting because what people call me, they never know exactly what to call me. And when I was in practice, it was Dr. Anderson, and then I transitioned out of a conventional medical practice, and it was Dr. Veronica. And now doing my leadership coaching and CEO executive coaching, people go back to defaulting to Dr. Anderson. So, but for you, Lisa, we're friends, so it's Veronica.
Oh, wonderful. I appreciate that. I am so excited to talk about this because in all of the episodes for the Empowered Career Woman, it comes up in every single episode. There's an acknowledgement that women play small in the workplace. Women fear speaking up. They don't want to be seen as aggressive. So when I saw your book, I thought, no, this is a perfect topic for us. But before we dive in, would you just share with us what was the genesis of your work in helping women in particular to thrive in the workplace?
So it's interesting because that respect thing I saw coming up all over the place online. I was in actually doctor forums where doctors were complaining about they don't respect me. And when they were talking about they were talking about administrations at hospitals. They were talking about patients. They were just, I'm not getting respected. And they were just really pissed off. This was men and women saying it, but more so women saying that. But also in my private coaching, I would coach women who were high performing, bright women, and they were having issues in their personal relationships with either a romantic partner or spouse or with a family. And it's like, nobody respects me. People aren't respecting me. What is going on? And it kept eating at me. They would say that, but I was coaching people and it wasn't clicking, but I understood how to help them get out of that feeling and to get the respect that they actually wanted. And then just one day, I had wrote another book right before this one, which is called Too Smart to Be Struggling, which people love that title.
I love
like,
that.
Yeah, that's me. I'm struggling and I'm smart. What's going on? But as I'm writing this second book right after it, I just woke up one night and say, I got to write something about respect. Everybody's saying this, and this is kind of easy to get out of, but it's not easy, or people wouldn't have the problem. So that's what happened. I was just coming across it a whole lot, and then I came up with what's called the respect method, and I just reverse engineered what people were going through, the guidance that I was giving. Okay, here, try this. They go out and do it, come back. Okay, now let's go to the next step. Let's go to the next step. And then I said, okay, what am I doing? Reverse engineering it, and came up with what I call the respect method, which each letter stands for a particular piece of the process that gets people, everybody, women and men, how to feel like they're getting seen and heard when they want to be seen and heard, without being seen like they're a jerk or aggressive or anything like that, because that feels bad to everybody. I think women especially, it feels bad too, because we've been socialized to be amiable to everybody.
Right.
Men, they don't want to be seen as jerks. Well, there are a group of men that like to be seen as jerks, I'd say. But I'd say for the people, the majority of people, that's a small, very small group of people. Most leaders want to be liked by the people in their organization. They want to be liked by the people in their C-suite. They want to have good relations with their staff, their team, the people who are working in their company. They want to be seen as a transformative leader, but also they have a responsibility to grow the organization, to keep the organization, to do the strategic plans. And that means you need to have people do what needs to happen to have that happen. You have an awesome responsibility. So you have to get people to listen to you and understand what you're saying in certain situations without questioning it sometimes. So how do you walk that line? And that's what the respect method does.
Okay, before we dive into the respect method and learn a little bit more, I want to ask, when people say, I don't get the respect I deserve, what does that look like? What does that feel like? What is going on that makes them think they're not getting respect? Is it
First, a lot of people feel, let's call it invisible.
Yeah,
and
okay.
So I was talking to a CEO the other day, 2 days ago, having a coaching session. She was talking about how she had suggested something, and then the next week they had a meeting, and somebody else suggested something, happened to be a male on the team in a position that was lower than hers. And everybody thought he was brilliant, and it was exactly what she said the week before.
Yes.
So there's that. They just, how did they not know that this was me? They just feel invisible. And that happens in the workplace, but also in the personal environment. So they don't feel, let's say, seen or heard. And because they're not seen or heard, they feel and see that other people are not appreciating their contribution.
Okay. Yes, I can relate to that. I can share that toward the end of my career, there was a merger, and the individual that was over a particular function was young, very young, early 30s. And same thing, I would say something, and then it would be pretty much ignored, and then somebody younger would say the same thing, and it was a great idea. So I had gotten to a point where I would tell my younger staff members, why don't you suggest this when we're in the meeting, or put this forward? As long as it didn't come from me, it was fine. But I see what you're saying. They feel invisible, and they feel like their ideas aren't valued.
Yes.
Okay. So,
and that's common across, let's say, like you're talking, okay, I was older than some of the people in the workplace, and so across generations, these things happen across, male, female, or, people who identify as something other than male, female. It happens across ethnicities and cultures and everything like that. It's pervasive. And when you're going through it, you think it's only you, and in your mind, whatever is your biggest pain point, you chalk it up to that. So, for instance, women say, I'm not seen and being heard as a woman. For me, I don't necessarily always think it's because I'm a woman. I might think it's because I'm black, that they don't see or hear me. we have a wound or something we've walked around with, or a story that we're telling ourselves that it's because of this. But it really is something quite different than the surface stuff, but we give it that meaning. So we might say it's because we're older, or because we're a woman, or because we're black, or because we have an accent, or because we identify as something other than, we identify as a they. It's just we put in our mind what it is, and that's not necessarily what it is, but that's the wound we walk around with.
Mm-hmm. So the women who are in that position, they're high performing. They are good at what they do. So why is it then that they are seen or not seen? They're invisible, or they're not respected?
So one of the things is we've all been taught to follow someone else's way of being, right? Mm-hmm. Not our own way of being. We have had, as women, I'm going to stick to women just because we're talking about women, but realize this is across people, but we have been taught to be somebody else. We've been taught what is right, what a way of being is by somebody else, and that way of being is not necessarily who we are. So we don't know anything else to do. We keep following it, but that's not working for who we are. So the next step in this process is really just starting to understand who you really are. And that is, it's not an easy process. It's complicated. But first, having the awareness that your whole life, from the moment that you dropped on the earth, you were taught how you were supposed to be, what you're supposed to say, do, like, don't like, and it was based on what someone else taught you, not what you wanted and who you were. And so the first thing is to raise the awareness that this is how we're all socialized. And if you get to that point of awareness and say, yes, that is true. I've always been taught how I'm supposed to be. And this is a lightning rod subject, because this is what people call culture. Mm-hmm. You hear the term culture thrown around a lot, and people say, well, this is our culture, and people use it, in greater society, but companies use this, and what that means is you've been socialized to believe that this is what's right and what's wrong, and when you follow what's right, you fit in. But if you don't follow what's right, you don't fit in. But that's not necessarily who you are as a person or what you believe in it, and there's just not really a right or wrong about what culture is. So it gets very complicated and nuanced, but once you raise your awareness that, okay, here's what's going on here, then you can begin to create something different for yourself and learn how to be who you are, stand strong in who you are, and once you change your energy to stand strong in who you are, this issue of not being seen, heard, or respected actually just falls away. You just have to be who you are. But the first step is you have to learn who you are, and that's where it gets complicated, because it's like you start at birth all over again. This is really, in my opinion, what being reborn is. You just realize that, oh my gosh, I've been walking through life following everybody else's narrative about what I'm supposed to be, but that isn't who I am. Okay, now I have to start from birth again and determine who I am. And that's when people who are coaches and teachers help people do. Figure out, okay, how do you do this while running an organization, right, or while being in the C-suite, so you don't look like you're completely crazy and break down.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, is that how do you begin that process? And is it doesn't sound like it's something that you should do by yourself, that you probably, this is a time when you need to have somebody who's a coach who sees it from a different perspective.
So this is true, and all brilliant leaders have some kind of at least one coach, if not more than one coach, because every coach or teacher has their particular area of core genius, and that's not going to be everything in your particular life. Yes, if you are a brilliant person, if you're smart, you're going to have some type of coach or teacher. And when I say that, it means somebody who's on your payroll that's in your back pocket, not someone that you're just getting together with and networking with over a coffee or a wine. This is someone who you have decided is important enough that I'm going to make the investment so that when I ring their phone, they answer it, and all of a sudden they switch into help me mode. Okay, I want to be clear about that. And I'm saying that so clearly just because a lot of I've come across people who are entrepreneurs and people who have been in a corporate employed environment. And in a corporate employed environment, a lot of times this idea of having your own coach is a little bit more foreign, especially you personally making the investment so that coach is invested in you and not your organization. So if you, Lisa, hire me, I'm answering to you as the boss of what's going on. If your organization pays the bill, I have a responsibility to your organization. So people who are in corporate, you have to understand what's going to happen when somebody else pays your bill. It's like health insurance. When you go to the doctor and you write the check, you get what you want. When it's your insurance company writing the check, the insurance company dictates what you want. So just get really clear about when you're making the investment, whether it's you making the investment or your company making the investment, because where do you want the loyalty to lie? And that's kind of hard for people because people are like, why should I take it out of my pocket? If you care about something, you will invest your money and your time in it. If you care, I can look at your calendar and your credit card statements and your checkbook and tell what you really care about. And this is important if you want to be healthy and holistic yourself, and you want to further your life and career, because you're not going to necessarily be in the same corporate environment forever. So you don't want your coach who's been helping you along to go away because your job has gone away because they downsize you, or you move to another organization, and you've had a good relationship, but also now because that coach was hired by your organization, you can't take that coach with you.
And I will say that's a powerful distinction, because in my experience, there were times when the organization hired coaches for the executives, and the coaching was more focused on the nuances of the team and understanding each leader and how to work effectively together. But at the same time, I would hire my own coach, and that coach, as you said, was helping me to see things clearly, was helping me to understand myself and my way of operating, was helping me to be a better leader personally, and it wasn't as much about the team dynamics that the business was hiring a coach for. So there is really a clear distinction and a great deal of value to having your own personal coach, even if there's a business coach at the same time. You'll definitely see that you can accelerate faster in your career, in your relationships, if you take that mindset of, I need somebody who's invested in me. So I'm going to say I 100% agree with that.
We all need somebody that's 100% on our team. I mean, I have a coach, which there's a group of us. We have coaching every morning, and one of the things that he says all the time, believe in my belief in you. Mm-hmm. When I take on a client personally, I believe in them. I don't take them on unless I believe in them. They're getting selected by me as much as they're selecting me. You see what I'm saying? Right. Is this person the right energy? Can I help them? Do they have the attitude where they're going to get results? And are they, really a doer and not an excuse maker? So if I find people who are excuse makers and are saying they, I'm not going to take that person on as a client. So if somebody comes in and tells me how bad everybody in their organization is and they're the victim, I'm not going to have that person as my client. Now, the organization may not be at top. I understand those type of things happen, but when they can also see there's a pattern going on in my life, there's these things happen. I'm in this organization and there's these XYZs happen, but I also know that I need to improve in these particular areas. Those are people who are open and aware and coachable. That's what I'm talking about right now. People that are coachable. Mm-hmm. So it's just, we all need somebody that's going to help us. And when you become my client, it means I believe in you, and there's going to be those tough days, and you can fall back on my belief in you. Believe in my belief. You don't have belief today because it's a hard day. Believe in my belief, and we're going to get you through this to the next step. Whenever you're moving to the next step, it is just super uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. You haven't done it before. You don't know what's going on. That's where coaches are there to hold your hand and take your hand. So if you do not have a coach, I'm talking to your audience right now, go and find one. At least start the process so that there's somebody who is on your team 100%, not on your spouse's team, not on your kids' team, not on your employer's team, but just they are dedicated to you. And also be clear that a therapist is not the same as a coach, and a coach is not the same as a therapist. So if you're in therapy, stay there, but coaching is completely different than therapy.
Excellent points. I love that. So let's go back. I want to step back to the women in the workplace, and let's just talk about some of the things that they are doing that hold them back. As I mentioned, the most common theme I hear is that women play small in the workplace. So from what you've seen, what is contributing to them holding themselves back?
People pleasing, wanting to be liked, fear that somebody's not going to like them, and you just have to accept everybody's not going to like you. You can be the most wonderful person in the world, and there's going to be people that don't like you. There's this fear, and this gets into deep, and this is the power of coaching. We all have that fear of not being liked. Why? Because we feel we're not going to be part of the group. We're not going to be taken care of. We're going to lose our job. Or we don't have a job. Or, we go down the rabbit hole of, if I don't have a job, I can't take care of my family, and I'm not going to have money, and I'm going to be home. You go down the rabbit hole of the worst case scenario, and that keeps you playing small. Mm-hmm.
I think women have a natural tendency to go worst case scenario. I find myself doing that all the time. And it's a conscious effort to pull out of that. It really is. And that was one of the values of coaching. Like, let's see the other, let's talk about the other side. What if the best case scenario happened? What would that look like? So, yeah. And that
getting people to go to what they want versus what they don't want is what you're talking about. So you're going to I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. So you stay focused on the negative side, and just a little bit of teaching these things that we don't learn growing up, such as universal laws like the law of polarity, which means there's an equal and opposite to everything. So when you're saying this worst thing out there, the best thing is out there too. They're both in the same place. Just the same way there's up, there's down, there's left, there's right, there's back, there's front. There's the bad and the good at the same time. So to just be aware that although you're going to the worst case scenario, the best case scenario exists also. So how do we get to the best case scenario? You start to retrain your brain to stop looking at the problem and start looking at solutions. just like when you're driving, you can only glance in the rearview mirror. You can't stay looking at it. You keep looking at the solution. And this takes training to be able to do. And we all want to survive. So of course, it is one of those things that you're thinking about survival. I mean, think about at the gut level, we're all here. Our number one job is to stay alive and survive. That's our number one job, and procreate, okay? Number one job. So that's deep in us. So you have to begin to learn how to retrain your brain to do that. Now, some of us, it's going to be harder, and a couple of reasons. Number one, if you come from a family and they catastrophize all the time, that's what you're going to have been taught from day one. Number two, I talk to people about the 3 I's, imprinting. I just told you about imprinting. You can have imprinted or your subconscious mind that catastrophe way of thinking because you were in the bathwater with it from the beginning, from your family. The second part is, how is your brain wired? So I'm as we're doing things before the podcast and I'm getting things from you, I'm like, okay, I'm what's called Colby, and we're talking about how people do things, and there's what's called a fact finder, where it's like data, perfect data, more data, perfect data, and if they don't, and wanting to have that, and those people who that's the way their brain's wired, and let me just say this. You're still perfect that way. You're wired that way. You're a piece of the human puzzle, so there's nothing wrong with it. But you're going to have that feeling of fear just naturally because you're never going to feel like you have enough data. Mm. And so there's certain people that if you understand, I grew up in that, and that's what's happening, and it's there, and that's what I think is right, and that's the way I cope with things. And these can all be true at the same time. Second part is, my brain is wired like that to do things and think that way. Once you have that awareness and knowledge about yourself, that's how you begin to turn the corner, because then you figure out, okay, what do I need to put in place to be able to feel differently about myself, and when I feel differently and more confident about myself, my energy goes up, and that's a whole nother concept that we teach about in these energetic levels. And then, because I'm on a higher energy plane, all of a sudden the bull that used to happen does not happen anymore. Okay, and but there's us also going into another plane. So we talked about imprinting, instinct, which is Colby in the brain about doing. But then there's this, when I'm talking about energy, there's that like intuition, that sixth sense, that you walk in the room and something shifts, or you like somebody or don't like somebody. That's the other piece that you need to understand about yourself. Who am I as that wired sixth sense being that when I walk into rooms, something's happening? When I decide to sit down, something's happening. When the email goes out and it goes to somebody, they say yes or no. There's that realm out there that many of us are not taught about, that has to do with quantum entanglement and real science, that when leaders start understanding that, they're standing stronger in who they are, and that is really a superpower. So when you understand those 3 I's and you stand in it strongly because you know this is who I am and I'm proud of it and I feel good about it, your energy has changed, and all of a sudden you can just say something and do something and get what you want, because it's all happening with, these forces that are in science. Like I'm talking about physics, and people are like, she's getting really complicated, and what's she talking about? All this stuff can be taught. You do not have to understand the principle of gravity to know that things are going to fall. So all the sciencey stuff that I'm saying right now, you don't have to study it to know it. Now, Lisa, being the type of brain she has today, is going to go get off and study this stuff because she's a fact finder, probably. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is how your brain is wired. So you're going to be like, that's fascinating. Now let me go study it. and I'm going to know this and that and this and that. Yes. Well, the other thing to be very, very careful of, very careful, is just because you heard of something and just because you know something, it doesn't mean you know how to do it or be it. That's why you need a coach. So people are going to walk away from this podcast. They're going to go do their own research, and because they can spit back at you what the research says or what the system is, they're going to think that, oh, I'm doing it. And that's a false knowledge.
Right.
You have a knowledge, but it's not that you really know how to do it. It's like me saying that because I studied eye surgery by watching YouTube videos that I can be an eye surgeon. I am an eye surgeon, but I can tell you from training that I read the book, I studied all the things in the book, I went and watched it in the operating room, but when they told me to get behind the microscope and put the instruments in my hand, I couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And everybody has had some type of experience like that in their life. If you go, let's talk about being a pilot. If you go watch pilots and you play video games, would you actually get into a plane and fly yourself? Now, there are some people who are daredevils who say, yeah, I do it. We'd have to test them and put them behind the plane to see if they would really do it or they're just saying it. But just think about how we learn. We learn from experience by actually doing something or the attempt at doing something and practicing it and constant spaced repetition of doing it. So do not feel complacent when you study something and you know it step by step that means that you actually know how to do it and implement it in your life, or that you're actually being what it is you need to be to get a certain result in your life. And this is where coaches and teachers come in.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up this morning stressing about a plan. Don't know which one to pick, I might need a hand.
Hi, they call me Medicare Misty.
She'll help to make the process smooth as whiskey, don't worry.
We work with several different carriers to make sure your coverage is not limited by a single company. Visit MedicareMisty.com and book your appointment today.
Don't worry, guarantee you'll be happy.
I find it really interesting because women are fixers, and when they're in a situation, they immediately think about how can I fix the situation, but it may not occur to them, and it wouldn't occur to me until I actually had a personal coach myself, that you have to step back and, as you talked about, discover who you are and why you react to certain things like you did, the imprinting and the instinct and the intuition. So how many times when you're starting coaching with somebody, is that a surprise to them? Do people even think about it from that perspective?
I would say practically everybody, but there's nothing to be ashamed of. This has been my work. And so, of course, I've thought about it over years and then studied what was happening with clients and how they were getting results. And now I've gotten to the point where I was able to language it such that it rolls off very easily, and we can talk about it like this on podcasts, and I can walk into a CEO's office and say, okay, here's what we need to do. What do you think about that? Is this something that you feel will work? They're like, yeah, because a lot of times they've seen in life environment some of these things happening. They're having these experiences, but they can't figure out why. And now I come in and say, here's a little bit about what's going on underneath. How about you learn about that underneath part about you, start putting it in action, and then see what you think. Mm-hmm. So it's doing it from the experience. And now here's the thing about being the fixer. And this was coached into me. This is why coaches are wonderful. And some people might have heard of this man because he's quite well known, Dan Sullivan. He's one of my master coaches. I'm in his strategic coach program. And he teaches who, not how. Who, not how. Meaning whenever something happens and you need to get something done, you don't ask, how do I do it? You ask, who can do this? All right. And so when I'm going in and teaching leaders and training leaders, I'm like, everything that comes across your plate, just ask the question, who can do it? You should only be working in your unique ability. And you may not even know what that is exactly because no one's ever taught you this, so we have to figure out what that is. But the first thing is to retrain yourself, to not try to do it yourself. And there's going to be a lot of people who are leaders especially are very capable, and it might feel more painful to get somebody else to do it because they're not going to do it quote unquote right. So you have to let go of that control and the need to be right too, right? That's something that we have. A lot of us are recovering control freaks and addicts. Okay,
Right.
So we have to learn to let go and to be able to. This is what I'm talking about. People are like, how do I delegate? Okay, the first step is everything that comes to you, every single thing that comes to you. First, ask yourself, is this my core area of genius? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Is really, seriously, is it? And if the answer to that is no, then who can do this for me? And there's going to be, by definition, very few things that you personally will have to do. Now, the next step comes in. You're like, I hear stories every single day about the wrong people on the team. The next step becomes, and this is where professionals are incredibly helpful, is how do you create the right team? I mean, one thing, I use the Colby system, the whole system to figure out, to get the power team in place, the peak performing team, based on the way their brain's wired. So you're putting people in a slot that naturally they're going to be able to do. All right. So when you're figuring out the who's, there are tools to be able to figure out the who, because think about it. None of us have been taught necessarily how to pick people to do anything. We go in, we interview, we look at the resume, we say they seem so perfect, and you spend months and months doing it and spend sometimes hundreds and thousands of dollars, especially if you're getting people in the C-suite. Averages, I want to say it's like $150,000 in 9 months to get to get a person into the C-suite, and then they don't work out. It's because you didn't necessarily have a system to make sure that you were doing a right fit hiring. So when you're in those positions of leadership, you have to get who's on your team and realize that you are not the expert necessarily. Even people in HR, sometimes I'm talking to people in HR, and what I'm saying, they're looking at me with a deer in the headlights look, and they feel really bad because they're like, I'm in HR, I'm supposed to know this. No, you're not. You can't know what you don't know. And so here we are to educate you and work with you, so now that you know it, and you can put something else in your toolkit. So now, just everything that you're doing, always ask who. The worst thing that's going to happen is you'll learn something new. I mean, I think that's the worst thing that's going to happen. But when you figure out who and then determine, well, how do I pick the who? You have to have a system for picking the who. You have a good system for picking the who. You're going to get off your plate not doing things that are outside your unique ability. Now, let me just tell you right there, for women, that's going to get you more respect right there. If you're not doing the little tiny stuff and you're having somebody else do the little tiny stuff, people are going to look at you totally different. Like me as a doctor, nobody's ever going to expect me to go get the coffee. They're not even going to think about it. Well, you're a woman and you're in a position of power. You don't do those little things. Why? It's not your unique ability and your core genius. So somebody else should do it. You should stay in your unique ability because that's your purpose. That's your life purpose. That's what you've been chosen to do. So you have to, when you talk about playing small, stop it today. Anybody who's listening to it, stop it today. Now, you don't have to say to people, I'm not doing it, that's not my job. You just have to think, who else can I ask to do this? Who's going to absolutely do it well and love to do it? And why do they love to do it? because their brain's wired that way and because that's their life purpose, and they're going to be happy to do it and it's going to go well. So this is just the whole shift in thinking.
Mm-hmm. And when you start that whole shift in thinking, how do you hardwire the change? You know, change is tricky, and you've gone through the process of discovering the who and the why, and you know what you need to change. And sometimes people start out and they might make a little baby step and they get a little pushback and then they revert back. How do you hardwire the change?
I'm going to give you the answer that no one ever wants to hear. You will not hardwire it. You have these things that have been in your subconscious mind since you were born. It's always going to be there. Now, you can change behavior, but it's always, and the more you do it, it's going to become more comfortable. But if you stop doing it, it's like lifting weights. If you stop doing it, the muscles are going to go away, and those old ways of being that do not serve you are going to slip back in. So the work is never done. It's like I'm saying, so I'm using the exercise and the analogy. Think about it. If you stop lifting weights, your muscles are going to sag. If you stop whatever it is, you're going to revert back. And because life is going on and you're aging, it's going to be worse than when you started. So just know. Now, can it get easier so that it's just the natural part of you, more or less? Yes. But it's going to be, in the beginning, like climbing up a mountain. You're just going to have to accept that that's what it's going to be. I'm not going to show. My name is Veronica. I was named by my parents because it's true image. I'm going to tell you the truth. Someone else may not tell you that truth, and they're going to lie to you because they want you to think it's going to be easy and they want to have you as a client. I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth is it's work every day, and you're going to need to stay on top of it and be aware of it. This is why having a group of people that's on the same path or someone you can hold hands with, like a coach, it's great. And let me just say, the other piece that is extraordinarily helpful is to be around, let's say you're a leader, and this is what, I'm recently a Vistage chair, and what we do is create CEO, president, peer advisory groups. There with a group of people that can hold them accountable every day, that can pick up the phone every day. And you need a group with as many different types of people in it, different ages, different industries. I know a lot of women like to join all women's groups. Well, you're only getting a little perspective when you have a group like that. Are they nice to have for support under circumstances? Yes. But you want a group with different ages, different backgrounds, different ethnicities to hold you accountable, but of similar type of responsibilities and positions. Because that's what makes you like really super. There's going to be things in the room. Like you're going to be, okay, I'm 60 and here's a 30-year-old that has similar responsibility because they're a founder in a startup in a fast-growing company. They're going to think completely different, but also they're going to hold, they're there because they want to grow and they have a commitment to helping you grow too. And then everybody gets stronger to better. So just when you're picking coaches, when you're picking groups, are you going to go in a group that's going to make you feel comfortable? Because if you go in a group that makes you feel comfortable, I can guarantee you are not growing. Okay? Right. But if you go in a group that's going to hold you accountable and put your feet to the fire, you're going to grow, your company's going to grow, your career is going to grow. So be careful in that. It's just, I see it happening, and they're like, I'm going to go in a women's group because we all, and it's, I like going to women's groups too, because it is comfortable. But I walk away and I feel good and comfortable, but it didn't really hold my feet to the fire. So just be honest with yourself about that.
Yeah, change is uncomfortable. So you have to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable to make progress. It's what I've always thought. So
usually a lot uncomfortable.
Yeah, right. Well, I did want to step back to the respect method because I didn't get a chance to circle back to that. And if you wouldn't mind just walking us through what that is and how that can help us at work and our personal lives.
So what I say the respect method is just, it's simple. It's to get you from where you are to where you want to go with a process. All right. And that could be, now think about this. There are systems that are tactical and transactional, and then there are systems that are transformative. So the respect method is meant to be transformative. There are other systems that are meant to be transactional and tactical. So the respect, each letter stands for something. The R, the first step, reflect. And reflect, think about it, look in the mirror, and take radical responsibility that you have created your life, period. And that's the first thing to embrace. Everything that's happening around you, it's no one else's fault. You are choosing to have this experience. Just look at it as a journey of your own growth. So look in the mirror, reflect. What's happened great, but what has happened not so great? A lot of people come to coaching because things aren't going the way they want to. Whatever it is, it's not so great. Take responsibility for it. Take your piece of it. And then you can reframe what it is. So all of a sudden, you take it, it's yours, you admit that it's yours, and then what happens? Immediate empowerment, because that means you can change whatever it is. So reflect. The next is to evaluate your beliefs. Evaluate your beliefs. So look at all the beliefs that you have about the world, and this is these steps are a little bit longer. Where did they come from? Do you believe them? Are they yours or somebody else's? And this is a very interesting step because you start realizing in this step even more that pretty much everything you think, believe, was given to you by somebody else, by your parents, by schools, by institutions, by government, by culture, whatever you want to do. And some of them are not going to be serving you. Some of them will. And this is the time where to keep the ones that are serving you and throw the other ones away and replace them with some else. S, this is the part where it's just like, okay, now we're going to start digging into who you are. I call it, the S is for surrender to spirit. This is when things like Colby and human design come in and we start understanding more your imprinting, your instinct, and your intuition. So you know who you are as a unique being. RESP. Okay. How do I forget? This is about pause. Okay, pause. There's two ways that most people need to pause. Number one is stop doing stuff that doesn't work. Hit the pause button. Just stop it. You have to understand how hard this is. If you think about it, it's like, well, what do I do if I stop that? Doesn't matter. Just stop.
Right.
Okay, so there's two steps to pause. One is to stop doing things that don't work, and this requires a lot of coaching because people are just scared if they let go of something and stop something because they don't know what else is there. The second is take a break and take a breather in life. Create that time and space. Put it in your schedule when you're going to have downtime. I would coach clients and they would get a heart attack when I say, you're going to take a whole week off by yourself, go somewhere. And that was part of the pause. And people were hyperventilating, but then they would come back after planning it. They'd be like, oh, my God, that was the best week of my life. Day 1, 2, and 3 are crazy difficult. Okay. Right. But then they get over their own mind, and they're just like, okay, I'm here. I'm doing this. I got to do it. And all of a sudden something shifts after about 72 hours, and you're just like, oh my God, that was so true. And I didn't say go away to a retreat with a silent retreat. You're going to do this by yourself. That's a pause. Okay. The next E is for elevate your energy. Elevate your energy. This is when we're starting to talk about the concepts that are in physics of, vibrational frequencies and where are you, and the low vibration emotions like guilt and shame and fear and anger and sadness, to be able to identify those in your life and let go of them. When you let go of them, you can move higher into the emotions that make you well all around: gratitude, love, and joy. And even having gratitude for those things that happened to you that were painful and tense in your life, and being able to see why they happened and how good it was that it happened. And these are, so elevating your energy, and then commit. This is, women will love this. Commit to your values and boundaries. Defining what is your value system. What are your boundaries? What is that line that somebody can step over? When somebody steps over that line, how are you going to know it, and what are you going to do about it, right? Mm-hmm. And then T is for trust and take action. And trust and take action is about having the faith to move forward without the data, to be able to make a decision in the moment and be able to stand with it in gratitude, love, and joy, not fear and anxiety, but being able to step forward and use your intuition. This is the step that is just, they're all fabulous, but learning how to trust your intuition, that sixth sense, this is what, I haven't heard many women talk about this at all, but certainly Steve Jobs has talked about it. Jeff Bezos has talked about it. How do you make a decision? I trust my intuition, and then I go out and get information behind that and the people to verify it. How do you come up with that? It just comes into me, and then I move on whatever it is. And they stay clear about it. They don't ask anybody. They don't waver. They don't try to explain themselves. That's intuition. And you need, as a leader and as a strong person, to be able to trust that, even when everybody else is saying no, and that's not the way to go. You know how your intuition, which will never lead you wrong, is that what it feels like. And I have different exercises to increase your intuition. Everybody can do it. Everybody has it. We've been taught to put it away. Many times women put it away even more than men because they don't think it's real, it's woo-woo, it's there. And this is when people start talking to me about, oh, I knew such and such a thing, and I ignored it, and then this disaster happens, right? They'll go back and talk about times where they knew something. There's that feeling. I knew I was supposed to go left, and I went right because everybody else said I should go right, and it all turned out bad. You have to get out of that. And so when you go through those steps, you go through the respect method, you can see how you take back your power that you have been taught to give away. You've been taught from birth to give away your power. The respect method is meant for you to take that power back. And what happens is you respect yourself. And when you respect yourself, everybody else respects you too.
Very transformative. That's excellent. I love that. And I think being able to step back to do the work of who you are and the respect method, it would give you more confidence to stand in your power and be able to go into the workplace and show up more powerful without alienating the people around you.
Absolutely. And then when you have these principles, because as a leader, you're leading, and so sometimes you are put in a position where you have to do some coaching. I don't think that's the best and highest use of a leader's time, by the way, but a lot of organizations try to convince themselves that they don't have a budget to get these type of things. So as a leader, you will come into situations where you're going to have to do some coaching. Mm-hmm. You need to have all this type of stuff in your data bank to understand, okay, I understand now how people are wired and everything like that. So when somebody comes in, you're going to look at them with a level of empathy and compassion as opposed to irritation and anger, because you understand how people are wired just all around. Like what I said applies to every human being. So once you understand that, you're going to be a more effective leader, a transformative leader. And when you are in the position where you have to do some coaching, you're going to do it from a completely different place once you have this in place yourself.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I love this. Great advice. So, if I am a young woman just starting out in my career, what advice would you give me?
Oh gosh,
There's so
the
much,
hardest advice
right?
of all is to learn who you are, so that you can be who you were meant to be. Get on your own path earlier. Get on your path earlier, and it's. Let me just say, it's extraordinarily challenging the younger you are. Why? Because there's so many competing priorities. There's I want my career to go up, but on the other side, I want to have a family life. I'd like to have a spouse. I'd like to have kids, and you're figuring out how to do all those things. So, but to figure out who you are, so you have a blueprint of who you are and what to follow, it's going to make all that easier. So young, figure out, I'm like, okay, figure out how to understand what was imprinted there. Figure out what is your brain and your instinct that's going on. What's going on with how you naturally take action, and how do you use that? And then also understand your energy, your sixth sense, and how you're wired as a spiritual being. There are systems that are out there. I particularly use human design that help you figure that out, and then have a strategy to follow, so that when life gets tough and you need to make a decision in the moment, you have tools to fall back on, questions to ask yourself, so that you get to the answer that you are confident that is right, and you can continue to go forward even when it seems like things are falling apart. Because we all have those falling apart moments in life. We all do. So are you going to go crazy in anxiety and end up medicated for the rest of your life? And let me just say, if you need medicine, there's nothing to be ashamed of. But your body does not have a deficiency of an anti-anxiety drug. There is no deficiency. Your body's not asking for that. It's not asking for a pharmaceutical. So the purpose of a pharmaceutical is so you can get through the tough time, figure out what's going on, and then be able to shift your mind and body so that it goes back to purely who you are and what path you're supposed to be on. So the final thing, there's this, some people know about this book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. People say, Dr. Veronica, how did you end up on this pathway? It's because the body keeps the score. Okay. What does that mean? I didn't want to admit this, but someone else pointed out to me, I knew it deep down, that I'm an intuitive. What does that mean? It means that I have the very high ability to be able to assess and read these energetic things. And my first coach that pointed it out said, you're a medical intuitive. I could tell what was wrong with somebody without meeting them, knowing them, anything. They would send me a text or say, you're a doctor, right? And all of a sudden I would know what their problem was. But not only what their problem was from a physical standpoint, what spiritually and emotionally was triggering them to have that issue. And that's how I ended up on this pathway. I tell people that story because it's this mystical pathway. It was something that I was scared of. It was something that I was ashamed of. And here I am now that I've been selected by organizations because I am on this particular path, because I help people work out those really difficult issues that they don't want to talk about on the surface, but end up being so very transformative. They're having if you're on your life path and life journey, you have to figure it out. If you are a young woman, figure it out earlier. And what's going to happen is, if they're listening to your podcast, Lisa, they know that they want to figure it out and there's something off, because that's how energy works. They're going to find what they need to find. They're going to be everybody's led to what they need at a particular period in their life. That's how quantum entanglement works. There's an observer experiment. When you know something, it becomes aware to you. All of a sudden, it's like white cars. You get a white car, all of a sudden it seems like every car is white because all of a sudden your awareness is raised and you see it. So there are people who have found your podcast today. It's like, oh my God, she's talking right to me. Yes, I'm talking right to you because this is what you need to hear today. Now, the next thing is not just to go down the rabbit hole of podcast after podcast, a book and YouTube video. Hire a coach, okay?
Yes.
I know you don't want to do that. Nobody ever feels like they want to spend money. But the most transformative thing you can do is use energy in the form of time and money. Those are the two main energies, time and money, to get a result. And you will always have to spend some more time and some more money. It's going to get bigger. The more responsibility that you get, the bigger that you're going to play in life. The ante's going to be upped, and you are going to have to show the universe that you are really serious. And that means stepping into the discomfort of giving time where you think you don't have it and giving money where you think you don't have it. So use your energy wisely. That means use your time and your money wisely. Realize that when you're using somebody else's money, you haven't made the commitment.
Right, and I'm going to underscore what you said about engaging young. And even though you think you may not be able to afford a coach young, it will help you accelerate so quickly and save you from so many headaches if you just do that work early in your career. You don't want to get to the end and look back and say, gee, I wish I lived my career in reverse and I knew then what I know now. So there's somebody out there. There's somebody out there right now saying, they're coaches, and they're saying everybody should get a coach. They just want to make money. Okay. Right. Here's the thing. For me, and I think every coach should feel this way, but they don't, I only accept clients who, with gratitude, pay me. So if you are resentful, you're not going to be my client. And because that's what you're showing the universe. It's not about me. When you're saying, oh my God, I got to spend money, that's your money mindset, and you need a coach around that, right? Right.
Because that's how you're thinking.
Right.
And forgive yourself again, because this is what you were taught from the beginning. This is how you were taught to feel about money, to think about money. It's what might be on commercials. I mean, think about commercials on TV. Everything's about save this much money, save that much. That's like saying that there's a lack of resources. And by you feeling like there's not enough, you want to be paid a lot, but yet you're buying into the lack. Not that there's an abundance, but there's a lack. And so trust that there's not a lack, that there really is an abundance, because everything, I mean, think about it. Everybody's tied to their phones and everything like that. That all came from somebody just thought about it one day and decided to create it. Why not you? And if you hear about origin stories of all these big companies, like think about Amazon, you might have your Amazon addiction. That company bled hundreds of millions of dollars for 7-8 years. Hundreds of millions of dollars. So just believe that. Why did that happen? Because Jeff Bezos believed in his vision and kept asking people for more and more money, and other people believed in his vision too. And those people that believed in his vision now are very flush with cash because they kept pumping it in because they believed in his belief in this vision. And now, today, you have an Amazon addiction with Prime and order something every day. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So you just have to think about, for people who are really visionaries and great, they know that I'm going to keep going after it. And I invested in myself. I ran to my limits. So now I'm going to get other people to invest in my vision. And if you look at a lot of the transformative companies around the world right now, that's what happened in the beginning. They bled for years, sometime to the tune of billions of dollars. If you look at here's a lightning rod person, but if you look at Elon Musk's company with things like Tesla and SpaceX and everything like that, before they were profitable, they bled billions of dollars.
Right.
And he had such a vision for them that when people are saying you got to let go one or the other, he said, no, that's like killing one of my kids. I'm not doing that, because that's what a visionary thinks like. Now, the question is, when I started talking about that, if you got a trigger or a charge around a person's name, you need a coach, because you need to get above those kind of emotions. Okay?
Yes. I think the most important message is invest in yourself. So
Yes.
just invest in yourself. Well, this has been a delightful conversation, and I think it will help so many women in the workplace who are struggling with the issue of respect. And I'm going to shift gears. I want to ask you a couple of personal questions. What books are on your bedside table?
U Squared by Price Pritchard, and Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, I Think and Grow Rich comes up a lot in these interviews. Yeah, it's a good one.
It's just a whole book on how to that book. If you want to talk about changing your belief system and what needs to happen for success, that book is the Bible of that. Seriously. So you'll first read it and you'll think this doesn't work, which means you're not ready for it. Then you read the second and the third and the fourth. Anything that you're going to study, you're going to have to read it many times. The other one that I tell people to start also with U Squared, and I talked about quantum entanglements and things like that. U Squared talks about making a quantum leap. How do you make a quantum leap? With ease and grace. So how do you go from things being hard to having opportunities open up in your life and doing it with ease and grace? That's what U Squared is. And it's a really short little book. You can read one little chapter every day, and it'll take you like 5 or 10 minutes, and it's just very profound. So those two.
All right. And one more personal question. Veronica, what impact do you want to leave on the world?
What impact?
Yeah.
That people understand and believe in themselves. Everybody has a purpose, a divine purpose. So it's like the woman, Amma, who goes around giving people hugs and kisses, and all of a sudden they feel transformed. Mm-hmm. Everybody that hears me, my voice, my message, I believe in you. I want you to believe in you. But you have to want to believe in you and not be scared to believe in you. So to believe how divine you are, how important you are, how loved you are. You are here because you were chosen. That sperm and that egg came together especially to make you, and that was on purpose. So now believe in you and live on purpose. Excellent.
There's a lot of people who are going to be inspired by that. Believe in you. We can't say that loud enough. So thank you so much for joining me today, Veronica. Would you share with our listeners how we may support your work?
So my favorite way is for you to find me on LinkedIn. My full name, Veronica Anderson Digby, and my last name, Degbe. There's not going to be many of those that you will find. That name is, I married a man from Benin, and the Digby means slowly goes life, and I want to leave you with that. My website, I have a drveronica.com website. I also have my boutique management consulting firm, which is rosewaterfalls.com. But find me on LinkedIn because that's where you get like the whole shebang.
Okay. And I will post all of that in the show notes so people can easily link over to your sites, and hopefully they'll connect with you and flourish in their careers and in their personal lives as well. So I am very appreciative of you taking this time to join me. And for our
Thank you so much. It's been such a delight. It's wonderful that you're doing this type of work. People need to hear this message. So I podcasted for a long time. I did an AM radio show also. It is important to get the message far and wide, and these type of messages will live forever in the internet. So it could be 5 or 10 years from the time that this was recorded. Truly, I have a blog post I did over 10 years ago that people still find.
Oh, yes.
So beautiful in what you're doing, your message, and your audience is getting your gift. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, and for our listeners, please join me on the next episode of the Empowered Career Woman podcast. I ask also, please do me a favor, leave a rating and a review. And I do welcome your comments and your questions at empoweredcareerwoman@gmail.com, or visit our Facebook page at emp.career.woman. The Empowered Career Woman is proudly presented by Medicare Misty. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at medicaremisty.com. The rise to the top is not always a straight line. Sometimes the bend in the road is the most challenging, yet it leads us to where we are meant to be. If you are an aspiring business leader or entrepreneur, join us next time as we share stories of women who made it to the top. I'm Lisa. Now go be the best version of you.